really, we want to encourage both parties to, this is not, you know, the whole climate crisis is not a political issue. A lot of the solutions are going to have to be found within the political process, but it shouldn't be seen as a partisan issue or an ideological issue. Last week ago, Wednesday, I went to the Snow and Ice Data Center in Boulder, Colorado. A little over 2 weeks ago, we had the equinox when the warm half of the year ends in our northern hemisphere. And that's traditionally the time when these scientific experts take a snapshot of how far back the North Polar ice cap has melted in summer. And normally being what they've measured over the last quarter century or a little more, it's about the size, at the end of the summer, it's about the size of the lower 48 in the United States, give or take, just a little bit. And the record melting was in 2005, when that was the hottest year in atmospheric temperatures ever measured in the history of the world. The amount that melted back was everything equivalent to east of the Mississippi River. This year, much more than that, another 23%, and an all-time record melting, and the scientists said it fell off a cliff. And based on the current melting rate, they say it could be completely gone in summertime in less than 23 years. And some are using even smaller numbers than that. But it can come back, at least the thinner annual ice can come back, and then we can have a chance to rebuild the kind of climate balance that our children and grandchildren deserve. And we have everything we need to get started. It's important in describing the incredible danger that we face with this climate crisis not to paralyze people with the fear of what we're facing. We have to call upon our courage as free men and women to make decisions about what is in the best interests of our civilization. And it's our whole civilization that's at risk. But that great generation, in coming back from World War II, found that they had gained something during the struggle. They had gained a sense of moral authority and vision. And when one of their generals in that war said, "It's time we steered by the stars and not by the lights of every passing ship," they said, "Yeah, that's right." And when another one said, "We ought to try to fix this situation over in Europe so they don't export world wars anymore. Let's have a Marshall Plan." And they said, "Yeah, let's do that. Might mean that we'd have to, it might cost some money." And they said, "Yeah, it costs a lot of money fighting these wars every few decades. So let's do that." And Europe is unified today and peaceful and prosperous and a strong ally for American values because that generation found the vision and moral courage in the wake of rising to meet that crisis that enabled them to see over the horizon and do what was right, not only for a few years, not only until the next election, but on through the next generation and the generation after that. And now it's our turn. And we look around the world and we see these crises that masquerade as political problems, like the genocide in Darfur and the HIV/AIDS pandemic and the other pandemics that are threatening, and tens of millions of unnecessary deaths of children every year, and the devastation of the rainforests and the oceans. And it's easy to get discouraged because they look difficult to solve. But they're really moral imperatives disguised as political problems. And our challenge is to see them in their true light. We have to change our consciousness. We have to see the world whole. There are times when we begin to see things differently. Europe saw things differently after they had the opportunity to work together. Years ago, you know, those people sometimes go to Italy in the summer and see those beautiful cities with the stone walls. They built those walls because Florence used to go to war with Siena. Florence used to invade Venice. And you ask today, how likely is that this year? And it's pretty absurd because consciousness has changed. Thinking has changed. It hadn't been that long ago that it wouldn't have been quite as absurd to ask, how likely is it that Germany will invade France or that France will invade Germany? But now, thank goodness, because of the political changes in consciousness of the last 50 years, that too is utterly absurd. We need to create a future in which, when people say, how likely is it we'll have a genocide in Africa this year? People say, that's absurd. Right now, it's not absurd. It's going on right now, and we need to fix it. But my point is, the key to fixing it is not just to rail against it and look for people to blame for it, although there are some, but you know, a bunch, and a lot of them in Africa itself included. But the point is to change the way we think about it. These problems are linked. Martin Luther King Jr. said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Well, now, increases in global warming pollution anywhere on this planet are a threat to our well-being everywhere on this planet. And we have to join hands. And I was thinking, when that young boy gets in his 20s, when that generation has an opportunity, not too long from now, to look back on what we did or did not do at the beginning of this 21st century, they're going to ask another question. And it's going to be one of two questions. Either they will ask, what were they thinking? Didn't they hear the scientists? Didn't they smell the fires? Didn't they see the ice melting? Didn't they care about what was going on? Were they too distracted? Incidentally, I went back to my hotel after a half a day with the ice scientists and turned on the TV, and two networks had bulletins that Britney Spears had just lost custody of her children. And I'm not making light of that or saying it's not of interest in the news, but we have to reclaim the integrity of our democracy and talk about real things. And I want that generation to ask another question. I want them to ask, how did they find the moral courage to rise and solve those crises that so many said were impossible to solve? That's our challenge. Let's get busy and renew our democracy. God bless you. Thank you.
Hey, Al. Isn't he fabulous? Stay here a minute.